Hello, hello. Today we're talking about one of my favorite subjects. I know I seem to talk about so many things, right? But I love everything of just knowledge, and I was in speech and debate when I was younger, and we did a whole bunch of worldview and discussing different political stances and debating each other, taking the opposite side. We would have so much fun, and I learned so much. And I guess it's still stuck with me because today we're talking about what is freedom, and 25 ideas or more or less, I'll make it kind of shorter, of that will change the way you see America. I just finished this book by Professor Shane Krauser. I went to one of his um, events where he teaches so many things, and he's an amazing, amazing person. He will ignite you. I went to his thing maybe a month ago, and I'm still like, I just finished the book, and I'm still pumped about it. Or I guess I always have been, so it wasn't just him. But I think change, like Gandhi said, it begins with us. Like, you want to change the world, but it has to start with you. And then Margaret Thatcher said something like, never underestimate the power of a few people to change the world, because in fact, that's the only thing that ever has. And I find that really powerful. So, we have the power. We don't need to wait for all of America to wake up or for the whole world to get better. Maybe it will never get better. Maybe it will. But we can't just give up, because that's not a great attitude. You know what I mean? Because we always, you know, appreciate people who fight till the end. That's who we call heroes. There's many heroes who died and we never hear about them. But the ones we do hear about or remember and everything, or look up to, that are still alive, they could have easily, never been heard of, but they still did what was right. And I know when I was younger, I never really understood why America was that great, why it was so different. And even now, I still have a hard time explaining concepts. Nor do I want to, because most people don't want to hear, or they just want to argue and not see another side, or they just flat out get, what's it called? Like they shut down and they won't want to talk type thing. So that's why I'm talking here, because if you're not interested, you can totally click out. But if you are, then you can keep on watching. So I guess maybe I have always known how amazing America was, because when we were younger, um, my parents would always take us traveling places. So when I was really little, my mom is from a different country, and we would go and I would see real poverty, like people who are stick thin, like their bones are sticking out, like so tiny, and no food, staying in these little tiny shack of shelters, like poverty like most Americans do not even know of. And that always has stuck with me. There's been lots of things, I don't want to go on about that. But I've always known that, wow, in America we have bathrooms inside, we have amazing houses, we have electricity, we have running water, we have amazing, amazing, we have the best road system in the world. Like all these things I saw when I was maybe 4 or 6 years old, I started seeing those things. And I think most people or Americans don't realize how great America is because they never leave. They're like, oh, we want to be just like Germany, but they've never been to Germany. If you go to Germany, they shut your heat off no matter what the temperature is at a certain time of the month, and you don't get heat until they turn it back on again, like 3 or 4 months later. Or I have some family in Canada, and we had to be careful because we were all staying in the same house. It was their family, and then my mom and me went, and we had to be careful of how long we were in the shower. Like, we had to make extremely quick showers because they would turn the water off or turn the heat off or something. I don't quite remember. But it was crazy. Like, we don't realize how free we have stuff here. And we have the freedom because we are responsible. Because, our founding fathers always said that freedom is only for a righteous and moral people. Because when you are righteous and moral, then you can have freedom, because you're not going to just be, doing awful things or wasting things. But nowadays we have not a righteous and moral people, and that's why freedom is getting taken away, because everyone wants someone else to take care of things for them, aka the super fed, like Superman, right? They want the federal government or programs. So it's kind of sad, but it all starts with us. So I just want to talk about some things that maybe you haven't thought about before. So Shane Krauser, he had a little speech that I thought was just so amazing, and I took a couple notes. I just want to share that real quick before I share a couple things from the book that I thought were super important. So he started off saying that we believe America is exceptional, and it's the greatest freedom experiment ever. Like no one has ever had anything like it. And we need to feel the power. We need to feel the principles. Because most of us, we kind of know them intellectually, but we don't actually feel it. Like the founding fathers, they could have been killed, where a lot of them were, for what they believed. And like we're like, oh yeah, George Washington, yeah, he crossed the Delaware in the middle of winter on Christmas Day, and he just like, captured all those Hessians and won that battle. Okay, we hear about that, but do we actually know what it was like to be in war for that many years, to be losing so many battles, and to have a third of your army without shoes in the cold water? Like, have you ever done that before? Like, no, we haven't. Like, they felt what freedom, what they were fighting for. Nowadays, we're so, like, have so much riches. Even the poorest of us have so much riches compared to what anyone has ever had before, or even in most parts of the world, that we kind of just let everything slide because we don't have that feeling anymore. So he was saying that every Christmas Eve, because he was saying how powerful and necessary it is for kids or anyone to just remember and feel the flame of why we need to keep what we have and respect it and admire it. So he's saying every Christmas Eve he has his family go look for snow in Payson, which is a place in Arizona which has snow sometimes, and remind the kids or his family of the crossing of the Delaware that George Washington did. So George Washington, he had an army of 25,000 people, but only 1 in 10 stayed with him till that point because we were losing so many battles. So most of the army just left. So only 1 out of 10 of the original 25,000 were with him, and only a third of them had shoes. So it was the middle of winter, and this is in the Northeast, so where it's freezing cold. And it was Christmas Eve, and so those people that were doing the war, they had no shoes. So what he does is he has his family take off their shoes, go in the water where it's all like ice and stuff floating down that river, and make them feel what it was like for our founding fathers to gain us our freedom. Because it's so easy for us to, just have it as an intellectual idea, and it never drops from here to here. So, and then he was saying that the best conversations usually come after one of those events that he does. So I thought that was really powerful. So that's something that I think maybe you guys can think about to maybe do with your families, or to teach your kids, or even grown-ups. Most grown-ups don't understand, And he was saying that this or that, what they were doing, that is what courage looks like. And you were born for such a time as this. And you will have to do hard things. But will you comply or will you stand up? See, it can't just be teaching. We have to feel it. Sorry, if I'm looking down, it's because I have like my notes that I had taken from his speech. But see, we have to change the dynamic of our conversations. And so he would teach Constitution classes at colleges, and most of his students would be like left-leaning. And he would just begin with 3 questions. And these are 3 questions you can use for anyone, anytime. And so the 3 questions were, who here wants to be left alone? He'd be looking to his class and say, raise your hand, who here wants to be left alone? And everyone would raise their hand. No one wants their parents dictating every part of their life, their friends dictating every part of their life, some third party dictating their life. Like, you know how kids are. You just want to be left alone. Everyone wants that. So everyone would raise their hand. Like, who wants to make the decisions on how to lead your life? So that was question number 1. Question number 2, he would ask, who here believes the government should follow the rules? And every hand would go up. Everyone believed the government should follow the rules. Otherwise, it'd be like a dictatorship, right? Where whatever his whim is, he does to the people or kills people or whatever, you know. So everyone agreed with that. And number 3, who here believes you should keep what you earn? And with that question, quite a few students would not raise their hand. They didn't believe everyone should keep what they earn because, you know, we're always taught that, oh, you know, we need to like give to other people, which is true. But there's a difference between being forced to give what you've made or it coming from the generosity of your heart to give. So when he'd ask who here believes you should keep what you earn, like some kids would not raise their hand. So he'd have those kids stand up and he'd say, I know Washington, D.C. or wherever he was teaching is not cheap, but you still have a laptop, you still have a closet full of clothes and a gaming studio and your smartphone and your iPod and your iPad or all those things. So bring them up to the front of the class. And they would have to go take it up there. And then he said, okay, now afterwards we are going to go to the local pawn shop and you're going to sell all your things, or not all your things, but those things. And I'm going to keep all the money. And no one would take him up on that offer. Because socialism is a cute idea until it comes to you or to the person. You know, it's all like, yeah, they should be giving all their money, they're so rich. And not realizing that they are richer than most of the world, and yet they don't even follow that. They won't even give stuff or want to, you know, because we have human nature. We're not angels. So, and then like the students, they would talk about flag burning and say, and the student would take a position of like, yes, we should have flag burning, we should be able to do that. And then he would say, remember when I asked question 1 and question 2 of who here wants to be left alone and who here believes the government should follow the rules? Well, what makes you think, I want to say this right, so I'm looking down. Now explain why you are telling others what they should do when you just agreed that you want to be left alone, yet you are forcing your opinion on other people. And yeah, anyways, I can't remember exactly how he said it, but it was so good. So good. I'll talk more about it in the book. He has it all written out, and I'll show it to you guys. And so these 3 questions, memorize them. They work for everyone. Whether you see someone with, you know, a hat that says something or a bumper sticker on their car that says something, or just like family members or friends or neighbors or other kids around. I mean, be careful with this because most people don't want to change and most people are not logical or rational or want to think or want to learn. So save your energy and only do it for those that really matter, you know? And yeah, you'll know. So he was saying that over his 16 weeks in his class, they would, like 80% of them would be Republican or right-leaning or conservative. I don't really like using those words. But 80% of them would go from being complete left to being right, on the right. And he was saying it was a massive transformation in the mind. And students would come to him afterwards and be like, after class or when they'd graduate, they'd come back to him and be like, why were we never taught all of this? In school, we were never taught. Our families, we never taught. In church or like anywhere, they never taught. And they would almost be in tears because they're like, these things are so foundational. And we were only seeing pie in the sky stuff. And we never knew all of this. And then they would ask him, like, what can I do to like share it with other people so that they can know? So that's why he's so passionate about writing the books or speaking, so that we can make a multiplication effect, because we all have our circle of influence that we can help other people with. And so he said, you've got to address the culture, and that will address the politics. And that is so true. And he was saying that most people, for picking politicians or whatever, their barometer for choosing someone is like, oh, he kisses babies, he's such a nice guy, or he's so handsome, like, he'll be a great president. What do any of those things have to do with any of that? Like, that doesn't even have to do anything with when you marry someone. Just because he looks pretty, but he stays on the couch all day and doesn't help you, isn't nice, like all those things, like, it doesn't add up. So he was saying that most people's barometer is he's a nice guy, he's kissing babies, or he talks nice. That's a big one, that he talks nice. What does that have to do with anything? Most guys can talk nice and do a whole bunch of things to girls. I'm putting it in that sense. But talk means nothing. It's what is the actions. So people's barometer needs to be like, what is that person's values? What does he stand for? What does he actually do? Because that's what matters. Talk is cheap. Like, I could be talking like this, and I could be living a complete other way. And what good is that? You guys would all know that it's a hypocrite. So, use discernment. So he's saying, here's what needs to happen politically. He's saying there needs to be less emphasis on DC and more emphasis locally. So we need to start with ourselves, our families, the people we are around, and our local politics. Because that's where things will change. Because he's saying we've never had so much tyranny, but I also believe in miracles, is what he'd say. So the 3 things that matter most in government that will change, that you can have an influence in and can change, is number 1, the governor, 2, the state legislator, and 3, the county officials. So it's kind of important to maybe not necessarily be involved, but you can tell them your mind. You can have your whole group write letters. Because I always thought, like, I'd hear like Rush Limbaugh's talk show or whatever, and he'd always be like, make sure you write into your governor and say this, or to your, excuse me, my voice is going out, or to your senators and stuff, to tell them what you think on this issue. And I was like, but they would need like 25,000 papers going in for them to even think about something. But then I read the actual statistics, and if they get like 1 letter or even 5, they'll know it's a big issue from the people. Like, if just 5 people will send something in, they'll be like, oh wow, we're actually getting something. Because most people think the way I was thinking and never do anything because they're like, oh, it won't matter. But it does. Okay, it doesn't take much. So anyways, I thought that was really good. And then he ended off saying that a quote by Thomas Jefferson, who said, when the federal government attempts to encroach in a city where they have no authority to do so, it is the obligation of the citizens to nullify. So the people we have the duty to do that with the government, to get involved, and like, that's what the founding fathers did. They could have just been lax and be like, oh, it doesn't matter. But they took it upon themselves to, and they were religious people. And nowadays religious people are like, no, we shouldn't care about politics. And that's true. Like, it shouldn't be our God, and that makes us like super happy or super angry to everyone the rest of the day. But it is important, and it is where we live. So yeah, I just wanted to just say some of those things. Those are the main points. And to go more in detail is this book that explains it so good. And it's a really tiny, tiny book. Like, you'd be able to read it really fast. And it's like Constitution 101. Talks about the Constitution, the Declaration of Independence, the roles of government, like everything. What is freedom? How to explain it? Why it's so important? It makes it so understandable and easy. And it also shows like how to teach people in it. and how to share it, or like if you have a family or kids, and or even if you wanted to start a little group, like it has all those things. And since I'm losing my voice, excuse me, I will put in the comments of the he had a chapter on what makes America exceptional, and it's like we have the most patents filed in the United States. We have the highest number of millionaires. Like we have the most wealth. We have like 5% of the world's population, but we create 25% of its wealth. Like so many things. Oh, and that we were formed on a Republican form of government. So he was talking about the difference between a republic form of government and a democratic and a democracy. And I never knew that, but I'll write it in the comments of the difference and how important that is, because my voice is totally out now. But I hope that helped you guys and was hopefully interesting. It's something I like to talk about but need to get better at. So I'll see you in the next one. Bye.